Welcome everyone to Social Security Timing's webinar on the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015 and the changes to Social Security rules. Wow, what a week it has been. This time last week, literally this time last week, I was getting ready for the Royals in the World Series and thinking, wow, this would be a great day to get down to a game. The next morning, the fact that this act was extremely likely to pass really came to light. Tuesday we were watching it. Wednesday we were basically in a mode to say, wow, how does this impact everything that we've done for the last 6 years and everything that we'll do going forward? And needless to say, as a team here at Social Security Timing, we spent a lot of time kicking back the impact of the rules, the impact on the clients that we have, that many of you on the call today have been advising for years on Social Security strategies. And the speed with which this thing moved through Congress was just incredible and actually became law yesterday. As many of you know, the software has been updated. It is out there now and is available to be able to run new reports under the new laws. So today, we've got quite a lot of ground to cover. We're going to talk first about our agenda is first the new law, then we're going to talk about the law in context, some case studies, and we'll actually break it down to the different groups of people and how they are impacted by this new law. We'll talk about messaging because, you know, as advisors, particularly advisors who are really involved in this type of planning, one of our biggest challenges is going to be communicating this to massive client bases. Frankly, many of you have built huge practices around Social Security planning, and we understand that getting that message out there is going to be critically important, particularly over the next 180 days. We'll talk about the software and materials updates. So let's dive right into the law. First off, if you have not visited the newlaw.socialsecuritytiming.com website, that's newlaw.socialsecuritytiming.com, I would absolutely encourage everyone on the call to visit that website right after the call. Maybe don't tune out right now. Visit it after the call. We've got a short video on that page that'll go back through a lot of the things we're about to cover. We've also got a summary of the rules and text to the bill if you wanted to review the bill itself. So in this first section, we're actually going to talk about the two sections of the bill. You've got Section 831A. Section 831A impacted the restricted. Basically what it does is it extends the deeming rule to for anyone who was born January 2nd, 1954 or later. For those of you who might be a little less versed in Social Security rules, deeming is the idea that if I file for any benefit, all benefits for which I'm eligible. Now what the rule basically did was say it tied spousal and retirement benefits together specifically. So it only covers spousal and retirement benefits, and it says that if I was born January 2nd, does not matter what age I am, I cannot restrict my application to only spousal benefits, preserving my ability to elect a retirement benefit later. Effectively, if I file for spousal benefits and I'm born after the window, also filing for my retirement benefit. So that's what it means by applies deeming for any age of eligibility. Not just, I'm sorry, that's the second, is it applies deeming for any age of eligibility, not just the month of initial entitlement. It used to be that, for example, as a lower earning spouse, I could intentionally avoid having the higher earning spouse file for benefits, and I file maybe 1 month before my higher earning spouse files. And because month of entitlement, I was not eligible to take my spousal benefit, then I would get a choice as to when I added on my spousal benefit. Now, deeming applies for any age of eligibility, not just that month of initial entitlement. So for example, if I file for my retirement benefit today and I'm not eligible for a spousal benefit because my spouse has not yet filed, but then my spouse files 2 months from now, at that point I am forced to add on my spousal benefit or to take my spousal benefit. If my own benefit is higher, I won't see any change, but what it does is it eliminates my ability to control the addition of that second benefit. And that really impacts the lower wage earner. So when you think about what the impact of Section 831A is, in the simplest terms, restricted application, that technique where I file for only a spousal benefit and then I later switch to a retirement benefit, is not going to be available for anybody who was born on January 2nd, 1954 or later. What that means is that 4 years from now, figure it this way, under the old rules, you were not allowed to file a restricted application until you had reached full retirement age. These rules basically impact people who are under 62 by the end of the year. And so if you're under 62, you would have had to wait 4 years anyway till you could file a restricted application. It's just that now, 4 years from now, you will no longer have that opportunity. So the restricted application will be gone for people who are born January 2nd, 1954 or later. Now, the second change is probably a little more intense. It's definitely a faster phase-in. The second change that was contained in 831B changes the rules around voluntary suspension. And what they've done here is require that any suspension of benefits suspends the benefits of everybody who is eligible on your record, not just the wage earner's benefit. So in the past, let's say that my wife and I were both full retirement age today. Okay, if both my wife and I were full retirement age today, and let's say that she had never worked. If she had never worked, she's not eligible for a spousal benefit she's not eligible for a retirement benefit based on her own work. But she is eligible for a spousal benefit as soon as I file. So what I might have done in the old rules was filed for benefits, then immediately requested that my benefit be suspended. Now, under the new rule, if I fell under the new rule, the minute that I suspend my own benefit, my checks stop and her checks stop also. So under the old rules, she could collect under me while I was in suspense. Under the new rules, she can no longer collect under me while I'm in suspense. That also impacts dependent children. So if you have anyone that has a children's benefit being paid or that would have been paid in the future, by virtue of filing and suspending, someone who falls under the new rules will not be able to have a child's benefit paid either while their own benefit is in suspense. The second part of Section 831B eliminates the ability to claim other benefits while the wage earner's benefit is in suspense. So in other words, let's say that I file for my own benefit, but my own benefit is pretty small, and I'm also eligible for a spousal benefit. You know, here's probably the best example. I'm a low wage earner. I file for benefits at 62. I start getting my spousal benefit at 66, but I want to delay now I want to suspend my own benefit in order to get delayed retirement credits and basically eliminate my penalty for having filed early. I no longer have that option. So if I suspend my benefit, I cannot claim any other benefit. I can't claim spousal benefits while my own retirement benefit is in suspense. So that's kind of the counterpart that eliminates both sides of the equation. Third, it eliminates the ability to request retroactive benefits back to the beginning of the suspension. So many of you may have heard of the idea of a retroactive lump sum, or the idea that if I file for benefits today and suspend them, and then 3 or 4 years from now, my health changes such that I really wish that I hadn't delayed benefits. It used to be, and there was definitely some, I'm going to say hesitance around this rule, because the only place this rule existed was in the Program Operations Manual. It didn't exist anywhere else, not in the statute. This clarifies that there is no ability, once these rules are in effect, to request a retroactive lump sum. So that is effectively gone after the implementation of this rule. The rule is applicable to suspensions requested 180 days or more from the date of enactment. Now, the date of enactment was yesterday. It was November 2nd. What that means is that these rules are applicable to requests that happen prior to April 30th of 2016. So if you're able to suspend benefits anytime, either in the past, if you've already suspended benefits, or if you suspend benefits anytime prior to and including April 30th of 2016, you'll fall under the old rules, meaning any auxiliary, a spouse or dependent child, can collect benefits under your record even while your benefit is in suspense. Now, if you made that request to suspend benefits after the 180-day period, let's say you did it on May 2nd of next year, that wipes out any spouse or dependent child's ability to claim under you while your benefit is in suspense, and it also eliminates your ability to request a retroactive lump sum at any point in the future. So that is a really fast timeline. Basically, for many of us who have a lot of clients whose strategies are going to be modified, we really have 180 days to get back to all those clients, rerun their analysis, and make sure that their strategies are still viable. Because some of those strategies may not have had a client suspend for another 3-5 years. That's not going to be an opportunity anymore. So it's really going to be important to recognize those timelines, especially this one, because it comes up so fast. The impact is that that voluntary suspension is only going to be available to people who are at least full retirement age within the next 6 months, and they have to make the request by April 30th of next year. Now, you'll notice in a lot of our communications, we put dates on these. So we say that that the voluntary suspension under the old rules is only available to somebody who's born prior to May 1st of 2016. And the reason we say May 1st of 2016 is because Social Security rules are set up a little strange. They're based on English common law, and they treat you as having attained an age as of the day before your birthday. So I actually turn, if I was born on May 1st of 1950, I actually turn 66 on the last day of April, which means that I can actually file at full retirement age on April 1st of 2016 if I was born on May 1st of 2016. So that May 1st birthday, or that May 1st timeline, is set up because of the way Social Security treats the attainment of an age. Basically, somebody on that day could file on April 1st, which would give them the ability to still request their suspension by April 30th. Now, if you've never gone through the process on Social Security's website, helping a client do a voluntary, a file and suspend or a voluntary suspension, there are a variety of ways you can process that. If you want to suspend immediately, there's a box, literally a box you can check, it might be a radio button, on Social Security's website during the filing process to suspend in order to get delayed retirement credits. You can do it that way right at your initial filing. You can also process a request to suspend via a call-in. So you can call into Social Security and orally request a benefit suspension. You can stop into an office, or you can send a letter. The only problem with sending a letter is that you don't actually know when that letter is received. So my suggestion, if you're going to, especially if you're going to be close, you're going to be in April of next year, my suggestion would be to call and document the call. Document that you made that request inside the window. So what's the takeaway here from Section 831B? The takeaway is that the voluntary suspension is really going to be available only to people who are at least full retirement age by May 1st of next year. So what's the impact on planning? Timing options are going to continue to be available even well after the phase-in of all of these provisions of the law. I want to give everybody some background. When we first started working on Social Security timing, the reason we called it Social Security timing was because I did not believe that these techniques would last forever. I became more and more convinced that they might over the last few years, mainly because of the way Social Security personnel began to treat them in press offices, etc. But at the beginning of this process, for me, I didn't see those lasting forever. In fact, we never built the interest-free loan because I felt it was flat out abusive and did not serve a social purpose. Frankly, I was surprised that these techniques were removed because these techniques, the file and suspend and the restricted application, they do serve a social purpose. They serve as incentives for a higher wage earner to delay benefits and as a result, raise a widow benefit for a lower wage earning spouse. That's one of the primary purposes of Social Security. So did this end up taking us a little bit by surprise? It absolutely did. But over the long term, there is still a lot of value to be delivered to clients solely in timing. And I think the beauty of this is it's going to wash out a lot of people who, the kind of the shiny object of the restricted application and file and suspend were reasons that they started to incorporate these things into their planning process. And now without those shiny objects, those who really do take the time to understand the rules, make it part of their process, are going to be able to make themselves much more unique in their local communities. And we're going to walk through a few case studies just to show you the kind of value that will still be able to be delivered even after these rules are in full effect. So first, I want everybody to take that away. Timing options will still be available even long after these rules are fully phased in. Second, the bill did not impact widow planning at all. All the widow planning options that were available continue to be available as these rule changes only impact the interaction between spousal and retirement benefits. They do not impact widow benefits. So the ability to file for a widow benefit at 60 and then delay your own retirement benefit for any amount of time until 70 is still available. The ability to file for a retirement benefit at or about 62 and still delay your own benefit, your widow benefit until full retirement age continues to be available. So if you work with widows, if you work specifically with women, you're definitely going to want to have Social Security as part of what you continue to do. Third, there will not be any ability to request a retroactive lump sum. So the only reason after these rules are phased in to use a voluntary suspension will be to fix a mistake. If someone claimed early, got outside the one-year window to withdraw an application, but now realizes that that was a mistake, they can still get delayed retirement credits. No one will be able to collect under their record while they're in suspense, but they can still get their delayed retirement credits. The voluntary suspension will still be there, but it won't have the strategy sort of impact of allowing a spouse to claim after the rules are in full effect. Next, understanding which set of rules applies is really going to be critical, particularly in the next 180 days and even thereafter. So the messaging that we really need to carry out to the public is that there are 3 sets of rules. One for the next 180 days, a different set for 180 days to 4 years. And the 4 years, the reason we chose that is that's when the last people gain eligibility to file a restricted application. It's not because somebody who ages in and turns 66 4 years from now has 1 day to do it. They can file their restricted application at any point. But there will be no more people aging in to being able to file a restricted application beginning 4 years from now. And that's why we say 4 years and beyond really represents the third set of rules. Age gaps for couples means each can fall under a different set of rules. We'll see this in the case studies coming up. So the window of opportunity for those techniques is going to close. What that means is that absolutely, definitely for the next 6 months, there is a huge window of opportunity for advisors to help people ensure that they've got the rules right. Huge window of opportunity for the next 6 months. Now for the period 6 months to 4 years, that's also a significant window of opportunity. I think the sense of urgency goes down after that, but the ability to make yourself unique in your local market continues to exist. And we'll see that through the course of the case studies. So let's get into the Bipartisan Budget Act and the impact on cases. Okay, so we just talked about the three groups of people. You can either talk about it in terms of timelines, or you can talk about it in terms of dates of birth. So our first date of birth that is really relevant with the new rules is people who were born on or before May 1st of 1950. They fall into the group that can access both the restricted application and the file and suspend where someone else can claim under their record. Now the second group of people are people who are born on or after May 2nd, 1950, but before January 2nd of 1954. Those are folks who will still have access. They will maintain the ability to file a restricted application. And of course, they can do that at any time after 66 until age 70. They can do that at any point. They don't have to do it right at 66. The best example there might be somebody who has a 5-year younger spouse. So if they have a 5-year younger spouse who can't claim Social Security and then does claim at 62, their first eligibility to file a restricted application would be 67. So they can certainly do that. They'd fall into that second group in that case. Now the third group of people is someone who's born on or after January 2nd of 1954. They don't have access to a voluntary suspension with the ability to any auxiliaries, spouse or dependent children to claim under them, and they also don't have access to the restricted application. So that's three groups of people. Here's our rules for born on or before May 1st, 1950. I want to tell everybody, for those of you who are Social Security timing software subscribers, you have the ability to access this next set of slides. These case studies are actually part of the consumer presentation that you can access. You just go to the little cogwheel in the corner, see in that menu sources, and one of is this PowerPoint presentation that contains these slides. So I'm not going to review the rules in this section, but we'll take each group. So born on or before May 1st, 1950, they have access to both techniques, okay, so long as they file that restricted application prior to April 30th. So here's a case study. We've got a married couple. We've got John, who's age 66 right now, November of 2015. He just turned 66. In October of 2015. And of course the question is, elect now or implement a Social Security strategy? That's always been the framing of this. So the assumptions we've got here are John has he's been a high wage earner, not a maximum wage earner, but a high wage earner. His primary insurance amount is $2,500. Jane's primary insurance amount is $1,300. We've got John living to 85 and Jane living to 90, 2.7% inflation, and a 1% real rate of return. In other words, we're assuming that they could earn 3.7% in an investment of similar quality. So here's the results. What we find for them is what we're used to finding in software, right? There's a significant difference between just filing early versus following a strategy. In this case, it's a $205,000 difference. These are the kind of reports that we're used to seeing. What was the strategy? He files and suspends at 66. He has to file for benefits and request immediate suspension by April 30th. That allows Jane to go ahead and collect a spousal benefit under her. He restarts his benefit at 70. That gets him the maximum delayed credit. Jane files for only her spousal benefit when she turns 66 because she's in that group that can continue to do that. Then she switches to her own benefit at 70. It'll be 21, 23 by then, getting the maximum delayed credit. So that's our first group. That's what combine those strategies. So this is born after May 1st, 1950, but before January 2nd, 1954. For this group, a voluntary suspension would stop all benefits based on your work record. It would be considered only to fix a mistake. So that means that this option, filing and suspending at 66, this group is not available. Okay, if he did that, not be able the spousal benefit at 66 while John's benefit was in. So here's our difference in the case study. Now we're going to have John turn 65 this month rather than turning 66. That means he's too young to be a voluntary suspension inside the window. So Jane turned 62 in 2015. No change there. So here's our same assumptions: living to 85 and 90, 2.7 inflation, 1% real rate of return. Here's the difference for them between the recommended strategy is $1,033,000 versus filing early. Of course, that didn't change. There's still a $188,000 difference. Still a massive difference between doing what most people do, which is file early, and doing what the software would recommend. So what was the strategy? For them, John needs to file for benefits at 68 and 11, $3,429. And the reason is he can't file and suspend. If he just delays till 70, then Jane can't collect a spousal benefit under him. The second bullet point is that Jane should file for only a spousal benefit. She'll get $, that begins at his age 66. That begins at her age 66. Change the pronoun there. Begins at her age 66. She'll switch to her retirement 70. So her instructions didn't change, but his did. The quandary here, and what the software is determining whether it would be better for him to delay his own benefit till 70. If he did, that would mean that she would miss check $190 each. Okay, so there's a tension between those two that the software is going to handle for you. It'll identify which thing you should do. Now, sometimes, let's say maybe he was 60, the age gap was different, you'd get a different result here. Strategy results is that no voluntary suspension was allowed and a restricted application was still allowed. Now let's get into our last set of rules. In our last set of rules, these are for people who were born on or after January 2nd, 1954. And there's a question that I get. It's a pretty significant question. I've only been getting it a week, but then again, we've only had these rules for a week, and that is so dead? And I'll put it bluntly: is it dead? And I think the answer is absolutely not. And you'll see that through the course of this case study. So a voluntary suspension for these people would stop all benefits based on their work record. In other words, the spouse couldn't claim under them. A restricted application is no longer available for these folks. An active claim for retirement benefits is going to automatically trigger a claim for spousal benefits as soon as eligibility exists, and vice versa. There's no as a restricted application for people born on or after January 2nd, 1954. So for this group, what matters? What matters for this group is when you claim, and we're going to see that in a case study. So now we've got Jack, age 61 in January of 2016, and Diane, age 59 in January of 2016. So the question for them is, how can they maximize? We've got Jack, he's a higher wage earner again, $2,400. Diane's full retirement age benefit is $900. We've got him living to 85 and 90, same assumptions for inflation and real rate of return. For them, filing at age 62 would be worth $710,000, where a recommended strategy is still worth $832. So that's $122,000 present value difference, even after the restricted application and the file and suspend are gone. Is there value that advisors can add to client lives by virtue of providing Social Security claiming analyses even after these rules are fully phased in? I think the resounding answer is absolutely. Will it continue to be a question that clients have? I think the answer is absolutely. Will there be more questions in the near future than there would have been in the absence of these laws? In other words, more awareness who know what they're doing in the near term? I think the answer there is absolutely. So what was the strategy in this last case where there were no none of these options were available. John would delay his benefits all the way to 70. He'd receive $3,880. Jane would file at 66 and 6 months. That's her full retirement age. But at that time, there would not be a spousal benefit available to her because John won't have filed. And remember, he won't have the ability to file and suspend to make it available. So she would get $1,055 based on her own record. When John files, that's 2 years, well, a year and a half later. When John files at 70, that's going to trigger an additional spousal benefit payable to Jane of $371. That's in addition to the benefit that she was already receiving. So you can see there is still quite a bit of interaction between the two members. Highly valuable for an advisor, first, to calculate those optimal claiming decisions, but second, to be able to explain the interaction between spousal benefits, retirement benefits, and widow benefits. That value continues to be there even after the rule changes are in full effect. So what kind of program updates have we made? Now, obviously, you can tell nobody has slept a lot around here lately. We've updated resources, including release notes. If you haven't been to this website yet, I would strongly encourage you to go to this newlaw.socialsecuritytiming.com. newlaw.socialsecuritytiming.com. You'll see an 8-minute version with a lot of the content that we just covered today, but it's a good way to revisit before we have a chance to post the recorded webinar. You'll also see article summary of the changes, and you can download the actual text of the law itself. What I would say is software is now more important than ever. You know, once you got good at understanding the basic Social Security, a lot of folks were able to do it in their head. They wouldn't be able to get exact as far as benefit amounts payable and what month they were payable, but they'd be able to get pretty close. You know, if we had a big age gap and we had a high wage earner and a low wage earner, it was pretty simple. Delay the high wage earner. If we had two people who were about the same age, it was relatively simple. Not so much anymore. Because of the interaction of these dates, it's going to be really easy to get tripped up if you're trying to do this kind of thing in your head. Software is now more important than ever. Widow planning does not change. If your practice has a focus on women, you're absolutely going to want to continue Social Security as a core part of that practice. Now, the software has been updated to reflect all the changes from the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015. So the analyses that we just walked through, you could run those same analyses in the software and be able to get a report out that you can deliver to a client and explain under the new rules, these are going to be your best choice. Now, for many of you who have been doing this kind of planning for a lot of years, it's true, you probably do need to go back through your client base, rerun reports under the new rules, and identify whether or not you need to get back together to modify that strategy. I think the last thing that we would want to have done is have a situation where, you know, we did an analysis for somebody 3, 4, 5 years ago. They're getting ready to execute it, but they're not supposed to do anything until August of next year. And then August of next year comes and they realize they missed a window. So our suggestion would be to go back through those old reports and just make sure you update them under the new law and be able to run those scenarios for them. We've also updated the client seminar materials. Now, just so that you're aware, I'm sure that there are some people on this call today who are software subscribers and some people who are not software subscribers. Those of you who are, just go to the little cogwheel in the top right-hand corner of your software. You will be able to access those seminar materials under resources. So click on resources and you'll be able to access the updated seminar. Just type in seminar materials, seminar in the search box, and that'll bring it right up for you. Now, for those of you who are not, but you go subscribe today, you'll get a free trial. It's a 10-day free trial that starts every subscription. You won't have access to the seminar materials until you're actually a paying subscriber. So I'll put that caveat out there. If you go pick up a free trial, you won't have access to the seminar materials unless you're a paying subscriber. We've also updated the Arrow Group materials. Those are going to be uploaded. The Arrow Group, for those of you who don't know, is basically a group of advisors who have chosen to make Social Security central to their practice. Now, when you do that, you start to see tie-ins in all sorts of other ways to the rest of the financial plan. So those of you who have attended, for example, the school, the most recent school we had in Denver, we had about 100 attendees. Day one is all Social Security, but day two, you've kicked off with 2 hours plus of tax, how Social Security impacts tax, how it impacts the rest of the retirement income plan. And so for those of you who continue to make Social Security planning a focus, I would definitely encourage you to explore the Arrow Group, but also realize that now more than ever going forward, it's going to be about how Social Security integrates with the rest of the retirement income plan, which in a lot of ways is a good thing. So those are the major updates that are out there. We've got just a ton of questions, so I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to answer as many as I can in the course of about the next 15 minutes. After we're done with those, I'll forward these to our staff. If you're subscribers, they'll get right back to you. There will be a bit of a delay in getting to you, just because we're going to, of course, make sure that the subscribers get their questions answered first. Here would be my suggestion. If you're unclear even after this webinar on how these rules work, go to the newlaw.socialsecuritytiming.com website, watch the video, read the article, and then when you get to working on a case, call our staff. Obviously, right now, they're backed up. There are a lot of calls. So voicemail, rest assured we will call you back. The turnaround may not be in the typical 30 minutes that you're used to, but we will call you back. So my suggestion, though, would be please don't call and say, how do these new rules work? We cannot do that on a go to the resources that we've put out in order to get up to speed as fast as possible. When you're working on client cases, that's the time to give us a call. So hopefully I've answered the one primary question that I see was entered about 30 times, and that is, after this window of opportunity is up, there won't be any need for Social Security planning anymore. You can tell that we don't believe that we think Social Security planning to those folks who do retirement income, but we also think that a lot of the shiny object folks, the folks who focus only on these claiming strategies, will disappear, which effectively evacuates a niche for those who really own it, which I think is fantastic. Here's a good question. Is a divorced individual still eligible for ex-spousal? The law did not change widow benefits at all, so a non-issue there in terms of widow benefits. The next question is, will we have to re-input all the clients we have already advised? And the answer there is no, you will not. Any of the client reports that are in the system continue to be in the system. So you won't have to re-input those. All you'll have to do is open up the client record in the software, and then when you get to the client screen, you trigger a calculation, and all you got to do there is just edit the client and then save it again, and it'll recalculate now under the new rules. You click Print PDF, and you're going to be able to generate a new PDF under the new rules. So you won't have to re-enter anything in order to get that complete. Next question. What do you know? I've got 4 in a row of you need after 4 years. How does the law affect divorced spouses? So it does not affect divorced spouse widow benefits because those fall under widow benefits. As far as divorced spouses, there is some concern that so let's say we have an independently entitled divorced spouse. Okay, an independently entitled divorced spouse currently can claim a spousal benefit, file a restricted application for spouse's benefits after they reach full retirement age. Now, theoretically, under the new law, if the ex filed and suspended, they would eliminate the ability of that independently entitled divorced spouse to claim a spousal benefit under their record. So the question I was asked was, is it possible? Number one, I do think that's a true reading of the rules as they exist today. But number two, do I think it'll happen much, or do I think it'll create a storm? And I don't. The reason is, when you have independently entitled divorced spouses, that means that both members of the couple have the ability to file off you can have a cross-claim. In other words, I could file for a spousal benefit under my ex, even if my ex has not filed for her own benefit, or vice versa. Now, if I file and suspend, I'm obviously going to be doing that under the new rules. I will have eliminated my spouse's ability to claim under me, but I'll also have eliminated my ability to claim under my ex-spouse. So I'd have to cut off my nose in order to spite my face. So I just don't think that issue of the independently entitled divorced spouse filing and suspending in order to spite their ex is going to happen nearly as much as we'll probably see press around it. So hopefully that answers the question there. Let's see here. Has the SST software already been updated? It absolutely has. And if you're accessing the software through anybody else, any other institution, then that's as well. Next question, has the act been signed by the President? Yes, it was signed yesterday by the President, which makes the enactment date of the act yesterday. That's where all our timelines come from. Next, has anyone in our office drafted a sample letter that can be used to send to established or potential clients? We're actually working on that right now for my own practice. That probably will be one of those materials that will be an Aero Group material. The core communication materials will be available to everybody. There will be a few that are reserved specifically for Aero Group members. Will we be going over widow benefits? We won't be. If you want to access any information on widow benefits, none of that has changed. So you can still go to the school inside Social Security timing. There's a widow seminar in there that you can continue to access. Question that I've now gotten a couple of times. Because the software is updated, can we still run reports under the old rules? And the answer is no, you can't, mainly because we didn't want somebody to go out and unwittingly not realize that they were running a report under the old rules. That was our primary concern. That was our sense of urgency in building these software updates as fast as we did and devoting the resources over a Halloween weekend to make sure that these things were done and that the advisors were equipped. The last thing happening is an advisor who counts on us to get these decisions right, delivering a report to a client that can't be implemented. And so you can't access the old rules or software under the old rules. Is it possible, ideas around, should we run a calculation under the old rules so people can tell, hey, this is what the new rules cost me as a person? That's an idea that's still on the table, but our primary goal was to make sure that advisors were able to deliver correct information. So here's a question. Is there any reason to file and suspend at 66 during the window of 180 days? I would say there is. There definitely is. If you're married, but don't do it willy-nilly, meaning do it only because it's part of your stand. Because if I file and suspend inside the 180 days, but the better strategy would have been for me to file restricted, oops, I've done that, and that's that. So what my suggestion would be is run the analysis. It is simple. It's very straightforward. It'll give you what you should do inside, outside each set of rules. So I think those are probably the key answer there. So if someone is taking a restricted year, can they continue this? And the answer is yes. Anybody who has filed under either of these techniques in the past can continue to execute. Effectively, everybody who has already executed these Social Security strategies is grandfathered in. And so that's 66 for the majority, yes. And the answer is yes, actually for all. You notice the last kind of window is January 1st of 1954, and anybody born at any point in 1954, their full retirement age is 66. So yes, for this entire group, full retirement age is 66. Does Social Security timing have or does Social Security Social Security Administration have marketing language that we can use to alert our clients, prospects, and get meetings. Now, of course, there is information out on the newlaw.socialsecuritytiming.com website. That information forms for you to craft any client letters that you want. You are going to have access to those case study slides. They're part of the seminar. So there will be several communication materials. We'll also be revising the client brochure, though that's not complete yet, in order to be able to communicate that with clients. So will delayed retirement credits still be attainable after the 4 years in the new rules? And the answer is yes. The law did not change delayed retirement credits whatsoever. So you have the ability to earn delayed retirement credits for any month that you're not receiving a benefit, whether or not you're under the new rules. This is an interesting question. I'm constantly being told by clients that when they the Social Security Administration to suspend their benefits at full retirement age, they're being told they don't have to do anything and their PIA will grow. What should the client ask so that they have proof that their account is officially suspended? My suggestion here, and this is different than past suggestions, until about 1.5 years ago, you couldn't file and suspend in the same application online. But once Social Security updated the ability to do that, my suggestion would be to actually file on. Make sure that you save at the end of that, you get a summary that shows exactly what you did during that filing process. So I think there's a lot of beauty in that, in your ability to document what you did when you file online, maybe even more so than when you go into the office. Of what happens with regard to family maximum benefits. Again, no changes to family maximums, so we still have in place the disability family max as well as the regular family max, and none of those thresholds or amounts have changed at all. So hopefully that answers. Is there an updated PowerPoint presentation? Yes. I believe that covers the majority of the questions that have been submitted. The presentation will be recorded. It will be available next couple of days. There's a little bit that we have to do. In the meantime, definitely visit newlaw.socialsecuritytiming.com. Oh, here's a good question. What about the personal 5-page website? This question is around the microsite. So every advisor who is active with Social Security timing has the ability to go to their My Settings page and turn on their advisor microsite. Has that been updated? The answer is yes, the calculator on the microsite has been updated, but no, all of the copy on the site has not been updated. So we will be updating those. Effectively, we have a ton of material out there, and so it really is going to take us probably, we expect that within 30 days all of our materials will be able to be updated, but we're talking modifying even content for a 16-hour continuing education class that we do for the school. So there is going to be a significant window of time where not every piece of material that we have incorporates the new rules. We wanted to make sure that the core elements, things that you need, that you use every day, they're up to date. So that's the software, that's any of the calculations, and that's the consumer presentation. So hopefully that gets the bulk of the questions. I'm going to go ahead and close down the webinar for now. If there are other questions that were not answered, we will certainly get back to you. Please, though, make sure you visit newlaw.socialsecuritytiming.com for the updates. When you're going to call our staff, just make sure that you're calling the staff not to say what were the changes and how do they impact me as a general question. Make sure that you're calling with those specific cases. If everybody does that, we'll have the ability to serve everybody that much better. So again, for everybody who's on the call, thank you so much for taking the time to learn about the new rules, to learn about how these changes impact your practice. Most importantly, learn how to carry this message out to your clients who count on you for right answers. So I'm always honored to be in the company of advisors who think that way. So thanks again. Please look forward to more coming from us as things develop. Thanks so much, everybody.